Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we'll learn how to create a dynamic timer prototype on Figma using simple variables and conditional variables. So if you look at this prototype, when I click on start, the timer starts from 0 and move perpetually forward. And when I click on reset again, it comes back all to 0. Apart from learning variable prototypes, we'll also learn how to add this timer layer on our clock and blend it well with our screen. So without further ado, let's get started. To follow along, grab a copy of the design from the community file linked in the description. Let's jump to our Figma file. In our Figma file, we have our screen, we have a clock on which we are going to add our timer, we have our CTAs, we have our timer. This is a font called Orloge, and you can download this font from the link in the description given below. Apart from this, we have our test prototype so that we can quickly test our timer prototype in real time and see how if it is working well or not. So if you see this prototype, we have a timer which is a minute timer, and when I click on start, it moves perpetually with time. Okay, and when I click on reset, it comes back to 0. So in order to make that, let's first understand the logic here. So if you see the logic here, the second digits go from 0 to 59, and the second after it becomes 1 minute. And when minute go from 0 to 59, it becomes an hour. In the clock that is in the prototype, it only have minutes and seconds. We'll also learn how to add an hour into it, and then moving forward we will remove the hour digit and then we'll just keep the minute and seconds. So let's first duplicate this layer. I'll press command D. So let's first create a component of this layer. I'll name it our layer, our timer, sorry. So we have our hour timer, and if you see, if I start adding interactions or variables into this layer, there won't be a perpetual motion, because after first interaction or after first change, let's say my first change is seconds change from 0 to 1, uh, and it moves forward perpetually. But if we do that in a single component, it won't move forward perpetually, it will stop at 1. So in order to make the time perpetual, we have to make a resting state and then an event state in which all the changes are happening, and then it comes again back to resting state, and that loop goes forward. So what we'll do is, once we have made our component, let's create on this add variant section. So we have our two variants. I'll name the first variant as T1, and I'll name my second variant as T2. Great. So what we want here is that, once, let's say I'm adding +1 through my variable, this component changes state from 0 to 1 in this state, and then on after delay it goes back to my resting state, and then I'll add one more, and then it goes back, and this moves on forward. So before doing anything else, let's start creating our local variables. So we'll deselect everything. On the right sidebar, I'll click on local variable, create variable. I'll create a number variable here, and let's name this as second, and we have a starting value as 0, so we'll keep it as 0 only. Let's duplicate this variable. We'll select our second variable, press shift plus enter. So we'll duplicate our next variable. I'll name it as minutes, and this will also start from 0, and same for the hour. I'll press shift enter, name it as hour, and this will also start from 0. Now in case of time, we have a repeating period, and that period is of 60 seconds. So after 60 seconds, it becomes 1 minute, and after 60 minutes it becomes an hour. So I'll add one time period variable here as well. uh, I'll duplicate this variable, shift enter. I'll name it as time period. So in this time period variable, I'll put the value 59 and not 60, because if you see in a timer, after the second digits become 59, it becomes 0 and the minute changes to 1. So let's start attaching our variables into our text layers. So for the second layers, I'll select the second text layers, and on the right hand side in the text box section, you would see a variable icon, and when I click on it, I can add the second variables. Great. Similarly, we'll select our minute layers, go to variable and add minutes, and same for the hours. Select hours. Great. Now that we have attached our text layers to the variables, what we'll do is we'll start adding interaction. So what I want is I want this resting state to go into my event state first. So what I will do is go to my prototype. I'll select my first variant and attach it to second variant. And this is not going to be on click. Let's do it after delay for 1 millisecond. Great, and this is going to be instant. Now I will select my second variant to make a loop and attach it to my first variant, and it is going to be an after delay of 999 millisecond, because in the first variant we added a after delay of 1 millisecond, and that adding to 999 millisecond it becomes a second. So we have our interaction as change to instant. We'll close this interaction tab and we'll start adding our variables. So in this case, there's going to be a conditional variable. I'll click on plus button here. I'll select the conditional variable and we'll start adding our conditions. So my first condition is that the seconds are going to increase till it become 59, which is our time period value. So I'll write the condition as seconds is less than, click space, my time period, which is 59. So if second is less than my time period, I'll add my interaction as set variable seconds, seconds plus 1. So let's first test if my seconds are working or not. I'll just copy this variant and I'll go into my test prototype. I will replace my layer and let's select our test prototype, press shift plus space, and on the top left corner you can see my prototype is working. So now seconds are working here, these are moving forward and they will go till my time period, which is 59. So in order to test this quickly, we will speed up our time and I will move this after delay from 999 to 100. Great. So if you see, my seconds goes till 59, but it is not coming back to 0. So in the else section, I will write else if second is greater than time period, then my seconds change to 0. So set variable, I'll select my second variables and I'll write the expression 0. So if you see, we have made a loop here. So after 59, it comes back to 0 and this move on perpetually. So now after the second goes beyond 59 and it starts from 0 again, I want my minutes to start from 1. So now let's add a minutes condition. So if second is less than time period, it changes to plus 1 or seconds goes to 0. Also, if second is greater than time period, in the else section only we'll add another condition, which is set variable minutes change to minutes plus 1. Great. So now let's see on our prototype if it is happening or not. Yes. So after the seconds goes beyond 59, it comes back to 0 and then our minutes change to 0 to 1. Right. So now what we are going to do is add a hours condition. So in order to do that, first I want to add a limit to minutes also. So here it needs to come back to 0 after it becomes 59. So we'll close this tab first. I'll add my another condition, which is minutes is less than equal to my time period. So for the addition, we have already added our addition condition for minutes on the above condition. In the else section, if minute is greater than time period, then we'll add as minutes set variable minutes equal to 0. Great. So let's speed up our time again. I'll put it 1 millisecond. Great. So here you can see we have added a loop in our minutes as well. So after 59, it comes back again to 0. So as it comes back again to 0, the R should change from 0 to 1. So in order to do that, I will go into my else condition. So in order to do that, I'll go to my else condition again here, where minute is equal to 0 if minute is greater than a time period. I will add one more condition, which will be hour change to hour plus 1. So if you see here, when minutes goes beyond 59, our R change from 0 to 1. Great. So we have made our timer here, and this can be used as clock as well. But here we have not added the condition of AM or PM. That would be a bit more complex. If you want me to make that condition as well to add AM or PM in our timer clock, let me know in the comment section, and I'll make a new tutorial for that. So now that we have made our timer, we will again change my timing from 1 millisecond to 999 millisecond in order to make it work correctly. Great. So I'll close this test prototype here, and let's come back again into our layers. Now if you see my screen, our prototype only had minutes timer. So what we are going to do is we will remove our hour properties and my R from these variants. So first we'll do is select my component set and press Command D to make a new component set. I will name this as minute timer. Okay, so first we'll remove our conditions from this interaction. So in the else section, I will just remove my R condition. And we'll also delete these layers for the R section, this one and this one. Great. So now we only have our minute timer here, and let's test this quickly as well. I'll select my first variant, Command C, place to replace. Align this in the center, and I'll press Shift plus space. So now you can see my minutes timer is working. Let's speed it up quickly. Great. So our minute timer is working now. Let's start adding this to my screen. So let's first add my CTAs into the screen. I'll select the screen, press Command D to duplicate it. I will add both of my CTAs in these screens. So my first CTA is going to be start. Okay. So whenever I click into start, I want my screen to change into my reset screen, and whenever I click on reset, I want my screen to change to my first screen, which is going to show 00 in our timer. Alright, let's add a timer into these screens. I'll select my first variant, Command C to copy, and I will add this into my reset screen first. Command V here. So all we have to do now is blend it well with this timer screen. So let's start changing it accordingly. First, let's change the color of this timer from black to white. Great. Now we want to add a skew effect in which these texts are going to be a bit tilted. So let's select my timer layer, go into the plugin section, and in the plugin section I'll type skew, SKEW. So here you can find a plugin called skew, and since my timer layer is already selected, I can now directly make changes to it. Over here I'll add a horizontal tilt of 3 degree and a vertical tilt of 9 degree. Great. So let's align this properly on our timer. Okay, so and this is going to be here. Great. Now what I want is I want this text layer to blend well with my screen. So on the right sidebar in the layer section, I will select pass through and I'll change it to difference. Great. So let's first check how this prototype is working right now. Select my screen, press Shift plus space. Okay, our timer is working, but we haven't set it correctly. So I'll go into my component set again. I'll select my action from after delay of 10 millisecond to 999 millisecond. Great. So if you see, my timer is working correctly now. So now what we can do is we can add a default text layer in the background. So I will select my component, press option, and then duplicate my new layer. I will detach this component, and let's also detach my variables. So over here you can click on break. So let's place this below my component. Okay, so when I select this, I can select my component. You can see these empty states on my screen. Great. Now that we added our effect, let's go into my default screen where the timer is going to change to 00. So we will select our background component here, which is in the default state right now. I'll press Command C to copy, Command B here, and then we will just remove the opacity from 10 to 100. Great, and I'll just add my effect layer effect to difference. Okay, now we have our timer and we have our default state which change the timer to 0. Now let's start adding our interaction in our buttons. So for the reset, I just want my screen to change to 00. So I'll go into prototype. I will attach this button to my default screen, which will be on tab and instant. So whenever I click into reset, I'll go to 0. Great. And now let's attach a start button as well. I'll select my start button, attach it into my second screen on tap, and when I click on start, you will see the timer starts from 0 and it moves on perpetually. Now there's a small problem here. When I go into reset again, it goes to 0, but when I start this timer again, it is starting from the point it ended in the last screen. So this is not starting from 0, and I want it to start from 0 again every time when I click on start. So what I'll do is we'll add conditions into our start button as well. And the condition is that whenever I click into start, I want my timer to change to 0 in the minute and both in the second section. So we are in our prototype section. I'll select this thread. Let's close this tab. I'll select add, set variables. Whenever I select start, I want my second to change to 0, and same for the minutes, set variable minutes to 0. Okay, so if we come back to our prototype, when I click on start, the timer starts from 0. When I click on reset, it comes back to 0, and when I click on start again this is starting from 0. So there is no bug in this prototype now. Great. So here we have made our timer which is blending well. It gives a cool 3D effect, and we can see it is working functionally as well. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you found it helpful, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more design insights. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.